Feels good to be back. Long week of work for I. Uh, Recording a little bit later tonight. Thank you, Noah, for adjusting the schedule. But there's probably an elephant in the room that we have to address immediately, right off rip. And
Multiple elephants.
You had an all-time bad fan weekend, as you could probably imagine, with the Penn State loss, the Eagles loss, the Yankees loss. But I really want to start out with this Penn State loss where they go on the road to UCLA, an 0-4 team, a place that they just got done cleaning house. Everybody kind of deemed them as like one of the worst teams in college football. The Nico situation over the offseason, everything around them kind of just felt like bad vibes. And Penn State, we talked about last week, off of a loss to Oregon at home at the whiteout. Then you go on the road and drop a game to an 0-4 team. Wow. That's really the only thing where my head was at when the game was going on. It was like, okay, Penn State's going to bounce back. They're 24.5-point favorites. It was like, they're bound to bounce back this game, like go and take care of business. Then they go down super early. They lose a pooch kick. They go down super early and they go and they block a punt. And it feels like, okay, like the Penn State's actually going to get away with this game. Like, of course. Then a bad play, probably. It was on 4th down, I believe, correct?
Like their last play of their like the 4th and 2 possession, like in the UCLA red zone.
Yeah. So a bad call on 4th down that kind of put the game away a little bit. What I'm getting at with all of this is we had a little bit of a conversation about James Franklin and Drew Aller and the entire infrastructure last week after a loss to Oregon. And I doubt that any of us thought that we'd be sitting here a week later off of a loss to an 0-4 UCLA team. So, one, where's your psyche at? And two, the James Franklin era at Penn State, where do you stand? Actually, I don't care about your psyche. I know you feel like shit. The thing that I want to touch on, actually, because we started going back and forth in the group chat about it, is like the James Franklin era. And you push back on me saying like, well, it has been a success. You can't say it hasn't been a success. It's like you brought up the sanctions. The first thing I want to say about the sanctions is like, I feel like Penn State has graduated past the situation. I feel like the sanction situation, I feel like Penn State, and tell me if you disagree with this or not, and we can continue on. I feel like they've graduated past not the excuse, but bringing up the sanctions. One, it was a dark time in Penn State history. Obviously, everybody knows that like what happened was inexcusable and disgusting. But they have turned that around as of this point. And whenever it gets brought, do you think that it's fair for Penn State fans and people to kind of like stop pinch holding them on this sanction thing? I feel like we're way past it. It's been over 10 years at this point.
I think multiple things can be true here at one time. Like, I think that I think right now we are past the sanctions. I think that. I will say this, like when we were texting about this, I was looking at it in the grand like entire scheme of the Penn State James Franklin era, and I think that there is a certain line that has to be drawn at where expectations have started to become greater than what they previously were. And so I think you disagreed, but I said that the grand scheme of the James Franklin era at Penn State has been a success. And my reasoning behind that is because of how poor of a situation they were in prior to him getting there. So he brought them out of the dark depths, and has been a winning coach in his career at Penn State, has won bowl games, But the expectations have changed along the way. So I think it's fair to say that the grand scheme of his time there has been a success, but it has not been a success as of like the last 2 to 3 years per se, especially this past season.
So the reason why I'm pushing back on that so heavily is like the James Franklin took on this coaching job in 2024 or 2014, excuse me.
Yeah.
2 years later, he won a Big Ten championship in 2016. You're telling me 9 years later, he's been back to one Big Ten championship. He's beaten Ohio State once in 2016. He's beaten Michigan once, and the last win was in 2021. Excuse me, or
yeah,
2021. So when he went year 2 and won the Big Ten, I felt like as of right there, he stamped himself as a different type of head coach where we are going to judge him based off of winning the big games, winning Big Ten championships, and potentially winning a national championship. And he does none of those things. So if you're like, I texted this to you, but like James Franklin at this point is like, although he goes and historically beats the bad teams, he didn't last weekend. When it matters most, he has pretty much been like a perennial loser. So that's where I'm saying, like, I think that I'm a little tired of the players. Like, whenever you get online after like a bad Penn State loss, all the players are like, oh, like James Franklin, nobody's sitting here saying, I'm sure James Franklin is an amazing guy. I'm sure that like he has like shaped young men's lives and that whole thing. But like when you just take the emotion out of it, like Penn State should be way more successful than what they are, just based off the recruiting classes they bring in, just based off the expectation going into every single season, the diehard fan base, the 100,000 plus people that pack the stadium, no matter who they play. Like that is they carry a different type of weight and expectation that the top schools in the country only can carry. And they are one of those. And the only thing that's holding them back at this point is a James Franklin.
So I'll kind of disagree with you on some of the things there, because if you look at the recruiting classes that Franklin has had up until this class that is seniors right now, they have had like somewhere from 10 to 15 as far as recruiting classes go. And yes, I'm not saying that's bad.
Is that not good?
No, that's good. That's good. But
Okay.
You got to look at the teams that he's losing to, and it's just the Michigans, Ohio States. It's teams that are better than Penn State. And it is coaching 100%. It's also players. Penn State hasn't had the same level of players and or coaching, to James Franklin's own fault, since that year that they beat Ohio State. I think that's probably like one of the best teams that they've had in the entire James Franklin era besides this year. Trace McSorley looking back on it, Trace McSorley is like one of the best college football quarterbacks that Penn State's had. They had Saquon, they had Gesicki. That team was littered with NFL players. And yes, that's how it is a lot of years for Penn State, but it felt like that year was a little bit different, and that was almost just like a lightning in the bottle year, and they just haven't had it. And a lot of that goes back on James Franklin, which is completely fair, and I think that he deserves blame for that too. But majority of his time at Penn State, he just hasn't had the same level of talent as opposed to like these Oregon teams, as Ohio State, as Michigan. And he's never been favorited in these games up until like the last 2 years. So I
just look at what Penn State has done. It really what it boils down to for me when I'm watching like on a week-to-week basis is just the quarterback position, because
it's bad.
The OC at Oregon can bring in somebody like a Bo Nix, who was dead at Auburn and turn around his career and pump him out to be a first-round pick, and he is playing big-time football in the NFL. On the flip side of things, you have somebody like Dylan Gabriel, who was a legitimate journeyman his entire college career from UCF to Oklahoma to Oregon. And then he gets drafted in the 3rd or 4th round. I forget off the top of my head. And now he's playing in the NFL. It just doesn't make too much sense where you have that. He obviously came in at the tail end of a Christian Hackenberg, who was a 5-star. Trace McSorley was a 3-star. Again, he was probably the best one out of all of them. But like the Drew Aller was a 5-star, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, he was.
And it felt like that was the opportunity for them to finally be like, okay, James Franklin's got the 5-star quarterback. He's got that guy to be able to do all of this. And it has just, from 2022 to present, the Drew Aller tenure, even when he was not playing to now, you have to look at it and be like, okay, we were giving him a little bit of a pass maybe during like the Sean Clifford years when they like during like a 2020 when they started out like 0-5 or 0-4. I forget what it was. And now you are at a point where it's like, okay, you're bringing in upper echelon recruiting classes, like in the top 1% of like colleges. And you have the guy at quarterback allegedly, and you just haven't gotten it done. So I feel like from that, so if you want to talk about like the first, even in the middle though, like the James Franklin tenure, just like that's when they were like dropping weird games and like that whole shit. But I think that like what we saw James Franklin do this last 3 seasons with Drew Aller, I feel like it's like, okay, the experience is done. Like the James Franklin experiment in Penn State clearly has like a hard ceiling, and it's over.
Yeah, that's what I said at the very beginning of this. I said within the last 3 years is when he deserves like his most criticism for dropping the ball with these teams, because these last 3 years are when expectations have started to rise to a point where it's like, okay, Penn State's getting there. They're getting to a point where they're as good as these Ohio States, Oregons. They're knocking on the door. And then this year was supposed to be the year that they finally open the door and walk in, and it hasn't happened. So that's why I said at the beginning of this, I think the last 3 years are the 3 years where the criticism is rightfully deserved as to why isn't he getting this done? What needs to happen for them to finally break through? And I think that that's fair criticism, because from a quarterback perspective, Drew Aller has gotten worse since the day that he's stepped on campus. And I think that just as a unit, they have obviously looked terrible this season. I mean, they've had one good quarter of football that brought some excitement to the fan base, I would say, in that 4th quarter against Oregon. But this game against UCLA this past weekend was one of the most piss poor effort, coaching, all of the above from a Penn State team that I've seen. And one of the things that James Franklin was reliable for was how they bounced back after losing one of those big games. Is it always seems like those guys are ready to come and play the next game, and that wasn't the case. And you get to a point where it's okay, well, if you're not winning the big game and you're not getting these guys mentally ready and physically ready for a game where you're a 25-point favorite, what are you doing? So there's been a lot of like James Franklin talk as far as moving on. Should they stay? Should they go? I just don't see how this team takes any further steps from a 10-11 win team. 11 is being generous. A 10-win team to becoming an elite team with James Franklin there. And I tried to give benefit of the doubt for the longest time on this, because I was very adamant on, you don't know, like the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Like we've seen instances of teams where they've had success and they haven't been able to break through. Nebraska, for example, they are a team where they were winning a bunch of games. They were having success, but they weren't able to take that next step. They fired their coach. Nebraska's been on a decline. Now they're starting to come back, but they were on a decline for a handful of years now. And that's the risk that you run when you move on to a new coach. But I think that the Penn State football team as it stands has reached as good as it's going to get with James Franklin as the head coach.
Yeah, and two things too is one, you're paying Drew Aller a few $1 million to play quarterback and he stinks. That's where you're gonna sit there, and this is what I always talk about with the NIL stuff.
And the coordinators. You're paying both coordinators a lot of money.
The Jim Knowles experience is a complete failure. That was hyped up from Penn State fans as being like the most ultimate like chess move hire of all time.
Yeah.
And of course it's fallen flat.
It's been bad.
The one thing that I am curious to see what happens is like what happens with the collectives, what happens with the NIL money, what happens with all of this, because you're looking at people who spend money out of their own pockets to put in Drew Aller's pockets, and he stinks and he's not good. And like, you're going to go back to the same guy who just wrote you a check for like $3 million and be like,
oh, hey, sorry, couldn't do it this time.
We need another $3 million. What if he looks at you and just be like, well, I don't really trust what you do with my funds at this point, because you've clearly shown that you're not trustworthy with it. So there's a lot going on here. I want to highlight James Franklin's records, his entire tenure real quick. First year, 7-6, 2015, 7-6, 2016, 11-3, 2017, 11-2, 9-4 in 2018, 11-2 in 2019, 4-5 in 2020, 2021, 7-6, 2022, 11-2, 2023, 10-3, 2024, 13-3. And then now to start off this season, they're 3-2 and 0-2 in the conference. So even when you look at the snapshot of the James Franklin tenure, it's not dominant. Like, there are years where he can go and win 11 games, like that's fine. There's always multiple losses on the record. And there are even some years where they are down and almost 500. So that's where, when I looked back at the James Franklin, because in my head, it's always been like, oh, Penn State's always like really good. Like, they're a double-digit win team every single year. And that just really, that's not even true during the James Franklin tenure. So, this, I've been out on him for a long time. So welcome. It feels good. But yeah, I definitely think it's time to make a change in State College.
They're just in such a difficult spot because so they went from Sandy Barber, I believe, was the AD at Penn State when the James Franklin deal was put in place. And she was not a great AD, and she moved on because they weren't good at anything when she was there.
I'm just kidding.
Besides wrestling. And then they brought in Pat Kraft, who I think is great. I think that he cares about the sports and he is willing to do whatever it takes to put all of the athletics at Penn State in a spot to be successful. But where do you draw the line? Because the buyout that he is tasked with for the James Franklin deal is like $50 million. And is that something that you want to take on? And if the answer is no, then fans, you better get used to it, because we, as a unit, Penn State NIL and Penn State alumni, they're not dishing out Texas A&M money. And the last time that there was a deal that got bought out this big that I can remember was when Texas A&M bought out Jimbo Fisher. Wasn't it like $40-something million?
I can check.
If you remember what it is.
His buyout was $77 million.
$77 million. And that's coming from Texas A&M, which is like historically known for the oil money in Texas and just having absurd amounts of alumni funding. So that's not how Penn State is built. So I just want people to prepare themselves for James Franklin to be the head coach next season, because I don't think they're going to buy him out at $50 million. I don't think that they're built for that. I know they just signed this huge Adidas deal, but that money goes to all the sports, not just football. So it's not like football can, and I know that football makes the most money at 95% of the schools in college athletics, but it's not like they can just take half of that contract and say, yeah, we're just going to use this to buy out James Franklin. So I just want people to be prepared for that.
I'm sure they can make it work. I don't think like the Adidas money would have to be the way to buy out James Franklin. I'm sure they have the money on hand to buy out James Franklin. It's the question. It's the matter of fact of the question is if they want to do it or not.
I don't think they're going to. I think that's a lofty price tag on top of them already being like, okay, it's been like, didn't go as planned this year, but look at what he's done. I think that's how they'll look at it.
Yeah, and we just talked about it and we went over it, and what he has done so far hasn't been that impressive. You think otherwise, I think completely different, but regardless, Penn State lost to UCLA this weekend. To move on, just right off the top, right off the rip, because I think it might be the most embarrassing loss that I've seen my entire football life, my entire time watching sports. It made no sense. I bet. I sent you a screenshot. I bet Titans money line. I bet Titans plus 8.5. I saw the number was 8.5, and I said that's far too many points. At some point, the Arizona Cardinals have the most guys on the IR and the PUP across the entire NFL by a long shot. So at some point, I was sitting here saying, well, it's going to matter at some point that the 6th string practice squad corner is out on the field. It's going to matter at some point that Darius Robinson, their first round pick from last year, and Walter Nolan, their first round pick from this year, are both not on this defense. It's going to matter at some point when their 4th string running back, who was on the P squad a week ago, gets called up, and he actually had like a pretty decent game. I picked him up in fantasy. I hope you picked him up too.
Michael Carter.
Yeah, Michael Carter. You finished like 18 points. That was awesome. But none of that mattered, oddly enough, in this game against the Tennessee Titans, where the Cardinals go up 21-6 at halftime. Going into the 4th quarter, it's still 21-6. And then the Titans go on to score 16 points. The Cardinals go scoreless in the second half to go and edge out and beat the Cardinals 22-21 off the back of some absolute circus plays. It starts with the Amari DiMarcado 76-yard touchdown run where he pulls up early and accidentally drops the ball, and obviously points get taken off the board, the whole nine. Very unfortunate situation there. And then the second one was
hold on. How do you handle that if you're a head coach? We'll
get to that in a second. Because there's a lot. And the second thing that happened was the interception, where I guess I don't know what a catch is or isn't, because nine times out of 10, like if that was an offensive player who caught the ball and fell like that and the ball popped out, it would be not a catch. So the guy intercepts it, he fumbles, it gets kicked around, it goes into the end zone. Tyler Lockett pops on it to score the touchdown. What I want to start with, and I was going to ask you first, what do you think of the Amari DiMarcado play and crossing the end zone? Because it happens like once a year, twice a year, whatever. There's so many touchdowns scored across the NFL. It's a freak accident. it sucks that it happens. So that was the first thing I wanted to ask you. And then you can ask me your question about if I was a coach, how you'd handle it. But what do you think of this? Because it's so overblown. I feel like the dropping the ball before it gets in the end zone is like so overblown at this point. It's like, all right, he didn't try it. Like he didn't try to drop the football before going into the end. It's just it sucks. It's boneheaded, but like I feel like it's not as big of a talking point as like everybody makes it out to be.
Well, to be fair, I think it looks as worse. I think it looks this bad because of the way that this game ended. If the Cardinals win this game, I think it would have been like, what is it called? Like that shacked in a fool, and they would have made fun of it for like
Yeah.
a day, and it would have been like no big deal. But because they lost this game, I think it deservedly it should be talked about a little more, because one thing that I will never understand, and I'm the opposite of you, because I think that you should just get benched right away. Like if you
Well, he's their fourth string running back.
Yeah,
So
you should get benched and you should get cut.
but
Like
he is there, like he is like he doesn't play. Like he's their third, fourth string running back.
I understand the spot on the depth chart, but I just think that that's such an inexcusable thing to happen that I don't know. It just makes me so mad seeing plays like that happen, because it's like, why are you in such a hurry to get rid of the football? Just make sure you're in the end zone,
It's just
and
boneheaded.
then you can celebrate. Like, just make sure you're in the end zone first, dude, and then you can take
I think you
do
saying that
whatever
they should be
celebration.
cut and benched is like pretty extreme.
Yeah, I
Like,
know it is.
like,
It's
like
100% extreme.
That's ridiculous. He busted off like a 76-yard run. Like that, if you look at that guy, he has no business doing it. And he's played well the last 2 weeks, and he's deep on that depth chart. It's a bone. Listen, I think it's ridiculous. It shouldn't happen. It should never happen. But it happens like once a year, maybe. And in the spot that it happened, it cost them the game, and it looks bad. But I don't think you should get, like, people were like, yeah, he's cut on Monday. It's like, well, Amari DiMarcado was like a pro. He like went to the media after, addressed the media, the whole nine. Like, it's not like he was shaving points. Like, it was just a boneheaded mistake.
I know, and I recognize that I am like on the extreme side with this. Do I actually think he should get cut? No, because he did have a nice ass run, but that's just something that makes me so angry that it would just piss me off to no end, especially with the way that this game turned out. Like, there's no reason that the Cardinals should have lost this football game, and the fact that he just drops the football before getting into the end zone after, it's hindsight 2020, to be fair on my part, because I'm way more mad about it because they lost than if they would have won the football game. So if they would have won, I wouldn't have that stance. But
regardless, it's inexcusable, win or loss. It's a bad mistake, but like at the same time, like it's just crazy that something played out like that. And you said it, and I'm going to bring it up. You said, if I were a coach, how would I handle it? Not the way Jonathan Gannon handled it. Jonathan Gannon, this is what everyone does across the NFL and college football and everything. When a guy flat doesn't have it, like, Jonathan Gannon isn't an NFL head coach. He's not. He sucks. Mm-hmm. He's not good. His philosophies on offense and defense stink. He's super conservative. He doesn't pull the trigger at the right times. His clock management is extremely questionable. And then now, where he has a situation on the sideline where he hits Amari DiMarcado after the play, I know that everybody's sitting here being like, oh, like, that's soft, this, that, and third. Grown men should never touch each other. Like, ever. Like Jonathan Gannon is like 41 years old. He's like 20 years older than Amari DiMarcado or whatever. Like, two grown men should never hit each other ever. And then, of course, Gannon goes to the presser a day later and has a pity party for himself and was like, oh, I hate the way that I handled that, like, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. Well, if you're going to do something, stand on business at least. So, like, there's like the guy who's on the fence, who constantly plays both sides, sucks. And what the Cardinals aren't going to do, this offseason, even though you should just cut the line and pull the trigger because you know that you have somebody who is leading the football team who's just doesn't have the chops for it. So that I know I said a lot right there, but for your initial question, Jonathan Gannon being mad and yelling in his face, have no issue with. Hitting him is absolutely fucking insane. And for anybody who is like, football soft, blah, blah, blah. No. Like, if somebody hit me, like, it's just, you just should never, like, a grown man should never contact another grown man because he's angry. Like, that is like what would have happened then if DeMarcado wasn't a great pro or something like that? What if he hit him back?
Fucking rocked him. Yeah, DeMarcado would have beat the shit out of him. He's an NFL running back.
So that's where I'm just like, I'm out on the Jonathan Gannon experience as a whole for the Arizona Cardinals. And unfortunately, they won't pull the trigger on him and cut the cord this offseason. But what more do you need to see out of this guy? He's one of the worst head coaches in the entire NFL.
Yeah, I fully understand like getting pissed off and like getting in your guy's face, yelling at him, but especially over what happened. But yeah, you got to draw the line at hitting your player. Like, it's one thing if you're like slapping shoulder pads, like firing everybody up, like you see Harbaugh do that. Completely different story. But when your head coach is like legitimately reprimanding your running back for a mistake that he made, that's too far. And so I saw a lot of people say the same thing that you were talking about, like it being soft, but I agree with you. You can't, that's way too far of a move as a head coach. And honestly, like if I'm a running back or if I'm a player in that locker room and I see a head coach hit a player like that, I'm just like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm checked out. It's
I'd be pissed as fuck.
Yeah, like I'm like, why do I want to go out there and lay it on the line for this guy if he's going to treat my teammates like that? Like, that's just piss poor coaching, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that.
A few things. Sorry to make this like the Cardinals episode, but we'll cut this up. Like, but it was just such an egregious loss. Another thing about this entire situation is like everybody's sitting here being like, bench Kyler Murray, fire Jonathan Gannon, blah blah blah. This that and the thing. What do people want Kyler Murray to do? What do people want Kyler Murray to do within this offense? If you watch,
they want him to throw for 375 yards and have four touchdowns, but that's not going to happen.
It's not possible. If you guys think that that's possible, then I don't know what to tell you. This team has an infrastructure problem from the head coach to the offensive coordinator to the defensive coordinator, the entire nine. Their philosophy is just dog shit. That's really all there is to it. And for everybody who sits around, like I saw somebody complaining about Kyler Murray year 7, and it's like him scrambling around in the pocket and then like ditching the football. And I tweeted underneath it and I said, Josh Allen legitimately does this 5 times a game. So like, I just don't, I get it. Everybody loves to hate Kyler. This is that and the third. If you're an Arizona Cardinals fan, or anything, what does getting rid of Kyler Murray do for this football team? There's a million. I reamed it off at the top. Imagine if both of the first round picks were playing football for them this season with Darius Robinson and Walter Nolan. Imagine if all of their corners across the board, Garrett Williams, if Will Johnson didn't miss some games, if Max Melton wasn't banged up, all of these guys. I don't know. I'm a little sick of it. I like Sprack texted me, our one mutual friend, and he picked it. He asked me, he said, who should I pick this weekend for Eliminator? I'm leaning Cardinals against the Titans. I said, do not pick the Cardinals against the Titans. I said, pick the Patriots against the Bills. He was like, I'm not doing that. And then he's texting me, freaking out, being like, dude, the Cardinals stink, like blah, 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 this, that, and third. I'm like, well, yeah, they're on their 5th string running back. their practice squad is playing on defense. What did you expect to happen? Like at some point, like if the entire team is hurt, you're going to see some problems. Last thing, and then we can move on as well. Marv had 90 yards in the first half of this football game, and then in the second half of the game, they didn't even give him a target. They legitimately couldn't guard Marvin Harrison Jr. And then the offensive philosophy, which you have to sit there and watch Osama bin Petzing in the post-game presser being like, oh, I didn't like that play call. Yeah, I got to be better. I got to do this, that, they're better. Like, it's like, all right, dude. Well, you're year 2 in. The first 5 games of the season have looked absolutely horrendous. Like, yeah, you need to do better. But like also at the same time, you have not done anything to adjust what you're doing wrong so far into this season. So it sucks. Year from hell for the Cardinals. I believe that I saw that Kyler Murray did not practice today with a foot. It just seems like this team is just going to be that team who caught the injury bug, and it's going to keep going bad. And I could see the Cardinals being one of those teams to definitely finish below the bottom of the barrel this year, strictly just based off injuries. And it's unfortunate because I think that this team is low-key extremely talented, and it feels like this is a wasted year, even with the injuries, because this team could easily be undefeated through 6 weeks, 5 weeks so far.
Yeah, they have losses to the Titans and who else?
The Titans, they lost
the Niners and the Seahawks.
Niners and the Seahawks. So
they lost those 3 games by a combined 5 points.
Yes. And easily the other way too. They could have easily lost the Panthers game. They won 27-22.
Yep.
And they could have easily lost the Saints game where at the end of the game, the Rattler threw it to Juwan Johnson in the end zone and they broke it up. And like you said, 22-21 lost the Titans. The absolute awful blunder on the kickoff against the Seahawks, and then another awful blunder against the 49ers as well. This coaching staff's just all-time bad. It's hard to watch.
Yeah, and sometimes you can make up with bad coaching when you have your team healthy, but the amount of injuries that the Cardinals have had at 5 games through the season, plus the coaching staff is just double negative and not working in their favor at all. Because you're right, I think they could have won these 5 games, and I think they could be sitting there even at 4-1 with a much different feel heading into these next couple of weeks than what they are currently feeling like in that locker room, I'm sure.
Yeah, the talent on the roster or the coaching staff just isn't going to make up for the lack of talent on the roster like you would be able to see like a Shanahan be able to do. I mean, it's just not in their bones. So yeah, no. rough start to the year for the Arizona Cardinals for sure. I don't have much to say about this next game just to move on, but I did want to just touch on the because it seems like everybody's really upset with AJ Brown. So the Eagles obviously go and they lose to the Broncos this week. What's your takeaway from the game as a whole, and where are you at with this AJ Brown situation? Because it's like, what's the deal? Fill me in on the deal, because he seems pissed. The fans are starting to turn on him, it feels like, a little bit. And there was one play this weekend where my personal opinion on it was he ran a stutter and go and he like stopped running or whatever. It just feels like a lot of the times like that doesn't get thrown, but also at the same time, that's no excuse to not finish a play full speed. What's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, and what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm tired of hearing about it because it's just the same shit. Almost it's like the same thing every other year. And now it's Devontae Smith has apparently chimed in because Diana Rossini, which, to be fair, I don't really know if I trust her as a reporter all that much, because there's been a handful of things that she's reported on that just haven't been accurate, at least from the last few years that I've heard. But she came out with an article about how AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are both not happy, and happy with the way that the offense has gone, and they obviously want it to be better. And it's like, okay, for starters, no shit. Anybody
Yeah.
that's been anybody
Thanks.
that's been watching the Eagles has known that the offense hasn't looked the way that it did at times last year. So, like, thank you for stating the obvious. Um, the AJ Brown situation with that play is, I'm right there with you. I thought it looked like he stopped running because he doesn't expect to get the football in plays, I guess, anymore. He
Ever.
just
Ever.
they also have just like subjected him to running like the same three routes every game. It's a slant, it's a comeback, and like the occasional go route. And so he finally gets a fourth route, and he's not expecting the ball, slant and go. It looked like he might have on the stutter, like not necessarily gotten held, but like gotten bumped into a little bit, so it slowed him up out of the route, and which kind of led him to just stop running, is what it seems like. He went on to say that he just didn't see the football with in the post game, and
We would love for him to see the football.
well, yeah, of course, but like at the same time, are you going to admit that you didn't run your route and make yourself look like an asshole? Probably not, because you know how the Philadelphia media is, and it's like, yeah, it's easier for me to just say like, oh yeah, I didn't see it, rather than yeah, I slowed up because I didn't think I was getting the football. But I don't know. I took it as like it seemed like he stopped running because he didn't think he was going to get the ball, and then he
Yeah.
finally gets thrown the football, and it would have been a touchdown, and it would have been an amazing play, got everybody fired up, and he didn't execute. So that sucked, but this was a game where this was not the ref's fault. There was some bad refereeing in this football game, but no amount of bad refereeing can make up for an 18-0 fourth quarter for a team that has as much talent as the Eagles. Um, they should have won this football game. They shot themselves in the foot countless amounts of times, and they just couldn't get it rolling. And the thing was, like, circling back to that article, it kind of made it seem like the game plan was to throw the football more, and now they fucking lost. So, like, thanks, Scott. Thanks, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. Why don't we have a more balanced offense where we give the ball to Saquon too, because he's also really good. Great, the Yankees are losing 1-0 already. Give the ball to Saquon because he was actually starting to get into a rhythm a little bit, and then we revert to throwing the football 38 times and we lose. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I said this going into the season where it's like the Eagles are just such like it feels like they're a locker room full of mental midgets. And
it sucks. It's so fucking frustrating.
At some point, it just feels like the house of cards is going to fall. And I'm pretty sure that it's beginning to fall now. Their wide receivers just feel like they don't have much interest in playing for the Philadelphia Eagles right now, because they're just, I think that like you have to sit here and understand where AJ Brown is coming from a little bit. AJ Brown feels as if he's probably one of the best players to step on that football field, and he wants an equal opportunity where the game's on the line or a big play is needed for them to go and look at him to make that big play and step up, because he knows that he's capable of doing it. And it feels like that they've gotten so far away from that being a top 3 option of theirs of what they would like to do, where does he probably think that he's more important and should have like that number 1 option? Probably, and that might be a little bit out of line. But I also think that there might be like a healthy middle ground where you should be able to get these guys the looks and touches that they needed, especially in big spots.
Yeah, there is. And the Eagles don't know how to do that for more than 1 year in a row. Because I felt like last year I know the stats didn't back it up, but it didn't seem like there was nearly as much bitching as there is now. but also at the same time, like you had Saquon Barkley running like a madman last season, best running back in the NFL last year, and now the tides have turned where they can't they can't give the ball to Saquon as much because the run game hasn't been there, and these guys are just like complaining. And even though they're getting like Devontae Smith had 10 targets last game, AJ Brown had 8 targets last game. Like Smitty had a good game, 8 catches for 114 yards. But if you the back to the AJ thing is like if you're the number one guy, in which he is, and he deserves a bigger role and he deserves the football, you have to play every play. You can't half-ass a route like that, especially when you know the offense that you're in isn't giving you necessarily the touches that you want. So when you have those opportunities, you have to play it out, and you have to actually give it your effort, because that play, his stat line goes from 6 catches to 87 yards and a touchdown. That looks a hell of a lot better than 5 for 43 and no touchdowns. And on top of that, maybe you win the football game too. So that would have been a win-win for everybody. And now this game isn't on AJ Brown. It's not his fault that they lost this game, but that play was pretty crucial that he half-assed it like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm with you completely. I just think that the Philadelphia Eagles dynamic is extremely interesting, and my guess would be it's going to get way worse before it gets any better. It feels like we're having the same conversations about the Eagles every single
as we did
season.
2 years ago. It was way worse in 2024.
I mean, brother, if you remember the start to last season where the Eagles fans were calling for his job, and then they obviously won him.
It got figured out eventually. But this is the same thing that the Cardinals go through as far as the offense and the play calling is just like so confusing, and it feels like no adjustments get made on a weekly basis, that it just makes you want to rip your hair out. I don't get it. I don't understand how you can go into a game after having 5 other games under your belt and say, all right, you know what? Well, this hasn't worked for the first 4 or 5 games. Let's just keep doing it the rest of the season.
Well, Sirianni's a bad coach.
I think the offensive coordinator sucks.
Bro, what's the common denominator?
I think Sirianni is not a good offensive-minded head coach. I think he's a better rallier of men.
Last year, Kellen Moore, I almost said Keenan Allen. Kellen Moore, like, there was still some buzz and upset people like within this offense last year as well. Like, there's a common denominator every single year.
But it wasn't this bad. This feels like Brian Johnson bad.
Yeah, you're correct, but still, I mean, it's always something every single year.
I know, and I don't think I'm not expecting it to be like Shanahan, because I don't think that's not realistic. That's not even close to the level of offensive competence that Sirianni has. Sirianni is good at making decisions in big situations and managing a locker room to a certain extent. Being an offensive-minded head coach and an offensive play caller is not his forte.
Correct.
So, so I know exactly what he is, but we've had positive offenses in years past, and this just feels closer to a Brian Johnson offense as of right now than a Kellen Moore offense.
Completely agree. All right, let's move on. This is going to be like a little bit of an intermission before we go through some of the rest of these games here. What I want to talk about next is first coach fired, because I think that there is a clear
laundry list.
I think there's a clear top 3 personally.
Yeah.
Of who this should be. One, I'm going with the obvious answer here, and that is Mike McDaniels from the Miami Dolphins, who obviously collapsed in a game against the Carolina Panthers. Two, I'm going to go with one that I always say, but it feels like that they're not ever. It doesn't ever happen because he's saved by the shitty health of Joe Burrow, and that is Zach Taylor. Where this past week, they go and they lose to the Detroit Lions, and then they go and they trade for Joe Flacco, which ultimately feels like an opportunity to pretty much save his job and figure something out.
Can I say something about that before you say your third one?
Sure.
Joe Flacco has had a great NFL career, but this is going to be equal or as bad as Jake Browning playing quarterback for the Bengals. I don't get this move at all. I think it was a waste of a trade, and I think it was a waste of a pick because that offensive line is abysmal, and at least Jake Browning can move around. Joe Flacco is very, very standstill. He can probably throw it just as good as Jake Browning, so I don't understand why they did this. Maybe they think it'll switch up the vibes over there, but I think it'll be as equal or as bad as the Jake Browning quarterback experience we've seen thus far.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it matters much. I think, though, that if whoever's trading for 47-year-old Joe Flacco at this point, like halfway through the season, you're probably the one losing that trade. So I think that's probably fair. And the last one on this list, which I feel I don't understand it. I said it at the beginning of the year. I'm going to continue to say it right now. And even though they beat the Chargers last week, I'm just really not figuring out a path where this guy's job shouldn't be gone. And that is Brian Daboll with the New York Giants. They go and they start out strong against New Orleans Saints, and they go and they drop this game 26-14, giving Saints and Spencer Rattler his first career win. Not the Saints, but Spencer Rattler. And I just, time and time again, I say it to you all the time. I don't understand how Brian Daboll has so much job security within this New York Giants organization, where they go and they turn to dart early into the season, 4 games in. You go and you beat a Chargers team at 1:00 at MetLife. Like, they let down spot. They go and they do beat them. So I give them credit for that. Now you go and you drop a game of the Saints. Now you turn around and you look at the schedule that they have on their hands for the rest of the way. They play Philadelphia on Thursday night. They play Denver next. They play Philadelphia again. They play San Francisco, which you would have to think San Francisco is going to be more healthy by November 2nd. Then you go Chicago, Green Bay, Detroit, New England, and then they have a bye week. I'm not seeing a world where Brian Daboll survives the bye week. Am I?
Bro, he's
dead wrong on this.
Wait, where's their bye week at?
Week 14 after the Patriots.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say they legit might not get a win until Christmas.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. So those are the 3 that are in my mind. It feels like the Dolphins head coach situation is just the one that the Mike McDaniel situation, the one that has the most buzz, the one that has the most heat, like this, that, and the third. So I want us to throw that one out a little bit because that seems like too much of an easy answer. So if I were to ask you here between Daboll and Zach Taylor, who do you think survives through the season? They could potentially both survive through the season, but I just feel like both of those guys are dead men walking at their respective jobs. It just doesn't seem like one. I just ripped off. I didn't read the rest of the schedule, but I just ripped off the Giants' schedule up to their bye. And then on the other side of things with the Cincinnati Bengals, you have Green Bay, you have Pittsburgh, you have the Jets. That might be a toss-up. They stink. Then you have Chicago, Pittsburgh again, New England, Baltimore, November 27th. You would have to think that they're going to be healthier by then. Buffalo, Baltimore again, Miami, that might be a win. Arizona, that might be a win. Cleveland, that's probably like up in the air. So you have some of these games, last 3 are probably toss-ups. but there's going to be a pretty big rough stretch here through the midpoint of the season where you're kind of facing murderer's row week after week.
So I think the only reason I think Daboll makes it a little further, probably to the rest of the year, is because he's latching on to Jackson Dart, and if Jackson Dart, he's not good, but if he somehow if he shows any progression and just even keeps them in some of these games, I don't necessarily see how. I mean, I do see, but I don't think that the Giants front office will be competent enough to pull the trigger and fire him. The Zach Taylor situation, he's just been so bad. I don't get how he even has a job now. I don't get it. I think that the obvious one, like you said, is Mike McDaniels, but I think Zach Taylor is like the clear-cut number 2, in my opinion.
Really? I think
I do. I do. I really do. I understand the Joe Burrow injuries, but he has just not been good. They didn't make the playoffs last year with Joe Burrow. He had a historical season, and they didn't make the playoffs. I know that team was absolutely miserable on defense, but look at the Cowboys. The Cowboys are in a spot where they could make they're firing it around, and they're the same exact build as the Bengals were last year. And there's a chance that they make the playoffs, and I think they will. But this Bengals team, I say this repeatedly, but there hasn't been one team that's benefited from a Super Bowl run that they lost more than the Cincinnati Bengals team.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that. And at the same time, so it sounds like, though, we have our bets in on Mike McDaniels, Brian Daboll, and Zach Taylor. It feels like we are aligned that those 3 seem to have the most question marks around their job security. I feel like everybody else is kind of set.
Yeah, I was going to say that there was a period where DeMeco Ryans was potentially getting on a warmer seat if things continued to progress like they had this season, but
I think they could have
around.
I think they could lose. I think they could have gone winless this season. His job safe. He literally. I mean, yeah, he took them to back-to-back playoff seats, and won back-to-back playoff games. His job's not in danger at all.
I don't know. I just don't think that. I think everybody else is pretty solid. Either
I'm right with you.
They're solidified, or they're just a year 1 coach, and I don't know. I don't think anybody's really done that horrible of a job besides some of these teams that we talked about already. I mean, the Jets obviously have been terrible, but I don't see them moving on from Aaron Glenn after 1 year. But that's just a complete separate issue on its own. But I will say I have I went through and I did my I ranked all of my teams based off of record again. If I could share that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we get into anything else. So my rankings for 4-1 teams are as follows: Lions, Eagles, Bucks, Niners, Bills, Colts, Jags. At 3-1, I have the Steelers. At 2-1-1, the Packers. So the Packers and the Steelers are both the best teams with those records. At 3-2, this is what I have. I have Seattle as the best 3-2 team, and then the Rams, the Pats, the Broncos, the Commanders, the Chargers, the Vikings. I have Dallas as the best team. That's 2-2-1.
I have some pushback real quick. How do you not have the Patriots as the best 3-2 team? They have the best win on the season so far.
Because I think that their loss to the Raiders was really bad.
You don't. So you're you're holding them back on a week 1 loss to the Raiders compared.
It's only been 5 weeks,
to going into Buffalo and beating Buffalo on the road.
Yes, I am. because it's only been 5 weeks, and I think Seattle's looked more complete in these 5 games.
Seattle
and I think the
corpse of the 49ers and then to the corpse of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I think that Seattle would beat the Patriots right now.
I think I disagree with you.
Okay, that's all right. That's why we do it. At 2-2-1, the best 2-2-1 team is the Dallas Cowboys. The best 2-2 team, Chicago Bears, followed by the Atlanta Falcons. 2 and 3, I've got the Chiefs, the Texans, the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Bengals. At 1 and 4, I have the Saints, the Browns, the Giants, the Titans, Dolphins, Raiders, Ravens, and then the worst or the best 0 and 5 team is the Jets.
Fair. Yeah, my big pushback is just probably the New England Patriots going into Buffalo and beating Buffalo just feels like probably the biggest win on the year so far.
I agree. That is a huge win. But
in prime time,
losses to the Steelers and the Raiders have me holding back a little bit on them.
Interesting. Okay. But you have the Steelers as the best 3-1 team. So how is that a bad loss?
They're the only team that's 3-1.
But that's your best. You said that was your best 3-1 team.
Yeah, because they're the only team that's 3-1.
But those were your words.
Those were my words. That is correct. But they're the best and the only 3-1 team.
Fair. All right, let's just do some quick game recaps here. On Thursday night, San Francisco was at the Los Angeles Rams. They won 26-23 in overtime. Another bad loss for the Rams. I mean, we talked about it a little bit going into the year where it just feels like they're up and down as an organization. And although they started off hot, which they haven't done in a few years, the 2 losses that they have at this point, one to the Eagles, allowing a dead Eagles offensive core to kind of come back and win that game, block 2 field goals, the whole 9. And then to have this San Francisco 49ers team and Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne completely tear you up, kind of fits the mold of what we said about this Rams secondary and what we thought about them as a whole. And Puka Nacua is obviously playing amazing football. Matt Stafford's playing amazing football, but at the end of the day, this defense is super questionable. So really bad loss for the Los Angeles Rams on Thursday night.
Yeah, if you're able to kind of minimize that pass rush a little bit from the Rams, then it's barbecue chicken. Obviously, I think their pass rush is solid. They have a pretty decent defensive line, but that secondary is, I mean, it's Swiss cheese. When you've got Kendrick Bourne going 10 for 142 on you, no disrespect to Kendrick Bourne, but yeah, you're in for a long day if he's cooking you and your top 3 wide receivers are not playing and you lose. That's a bad day if you're a Rams secondary. But I have a question for you.
Yeah,
there's been some things that I've been seeing on X, the Everything app, about Brock Purdy and Mac Jones, and some discussion about, if Shanahan's this good of a coach, and I forget who I listened to. It might have been Bill Simmons, but these guys talking about how the quarterbacks are getting these ridiculous contracts, and they brought up how maybe it should be like these head coaches that are getting these insane contracts, because if a guy like Shanahan is continuing, and Kevin O'Connell, if these guys are continuing to bring in like mid-level talent and getting the most out of it, isn't that technically more valuable than paying a Brock Purdy 250, whatever his deal was? So I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on that.
Well,
maybe it wasn't Bill Simmons, but
there's a salary cap in football and a market based on each player. So no, I get what you're trying to say. I get what you're trying to say, but no. I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, like, Shanahan will be the head coach of the 49ers forever. Like, you know what I mean? There's no reason to get rid of him. Say, like, his job security is like as firm as anybody's. So there's that.
No, I'm not saying get rid of him. I'm saying that instead of paying like a guy like Brock Purdy all that money, invest it elsewhere and give a bigger chunk of money to your head coach if he's able to get you these types of productions from whoever's playing quarterback for you. Does that
Because
make sense?
there's a ceiling on like mid-level quarterbacks and what they can do. You want to try to find somebody who's like special, and that's why you spend the money to like potentially like win a Super Bowl.
Okay. No, I'm not like on either side. I've just been thinking about it, and it's like it is kind of a good point if you have that good of a head coach where it's like no matter who we bring in at quarterback, they're going to be able to get you some production. I understand that there is a ceiling at that, but it was interesting to think about.
Yeah, no, that's interesting to think about. I just think that probably like what happens when like that doesn't happen. Like what happens when like a quarterback comes in and he doesn't get production out of him, then what happens? Like, you know, then it's
Yeah,
like,
but that's the same as saying though, like you draft a guy
like
that has like
Shanahan
a lot of
drafted a guy third
yeah,
overall and got zero production out of
yeah.
him.
That's
So
what I'm
like,
saying. That's like the same as that.
yeah. What I do think is interesting and with everything that happened with this Mac Jones situation on Thursday night and in primetime is just like the idea of like the reclamation quarterback project like across like the entire NFL, where there's going to be teams this offseason that look at somebody like Mac Jones and say, okay, let's bring him in and he could be our starting quarterback. And we've seen this happen kind of dating back to probably like the Jimmy G and Patriots had, where I was just saying when this dates back to when the New England Patriots had Jimmy Garoppolo. He came in for a few games. He looked really good. And the Niners have then decided to make him like the quarterback of the future. He went to a Super Bowl. He went to an NFC championship. He played in a lot of big games and he played really well for them. And then now, as you go down the list of like a Jared Goff, where he's on his second team playing extremely well, and it felt like he got given up on. Baker Mayfield was essentially done, dust in the water, getting cut off football
Yeah.
teams, and now he's playing at a really high level. And same situation here with like a Geno Smith, even though he's playing really bad this year, and it seems like he's completely lost it. But there was a point in time where Geno
Yeah.
Smith was that situation. Sam Darnold is probably the newest one
Yep.
in here, and then the same thing with Mac Jones. So it feels like no, like these guys aren't going to like head coaches might get brought up like a good bit, but I think that at a point, like I doubted Baker Mayfield time and time again, like, oh, what would happen? I doubted Jared Goff time and time again, like, oh, what would happen? Those guys have cycled through multiple play callers and have still been able to be successful. And Baker Mayfield's probably the best example of this. Sam Darnold this year being able to kind of find himself and continue. If a guy's talented and starts to get some sort of confidence in playing that quarterback position, I think
Daniel
that's what.
Jones.
Yeah, Daniel Jones is probably the best example of this, and the newest one with Indianapolis. So something to like keep an eye on and mind on is just like this reclamation quarterback project across like the entire NFL.
Do you think it's more so of what do you think the contributing fact like one of the contributing factors is to this? Because as like you say this, all these guys were like kind of in the NFL for a handful of years, and like I think it just kind of goes back to experience. I think a lot of it is experience because we have gotten to a point where it feels like quarterbacks now are, if you don't execute in your first year or right away, it's like a red flag, and discussions begin to happen of like, do we go in a different direction, or is this not the guy? Where it might just be an instance of like the NFL and playing quarterback is really fucking hard, and like you need a little bit more experience in order to maybe become who you are as a quarterback. Could it
And
be that?
that's completely fair to have both sides of those conversations where it's like,
Yeah, it
if you're
is.
drafted within like the top 5, you're expected to come in and be able to overcome any of those hurdles because you're that talented of a prospect. And if you're failing on that front and it takes 7-8 years into your career to finally find your footing, like that's not why you were drafted. And although like, yes, these guys are playing like high level football, we haven't seen one of these guys go and like Jimmy G was damn close, but like go and like win a Super Bowl or like
Yeah.
a league MVP. Baker could potentially win a league
Well,
MVP this
Jared
year the
Goff
way
was
he's
close.
playing. Yeah, well, they haven't done it yet. So until that like happens, I mean, there might and like Jared Goff's only on his second team. There, I feel like those
Yeah.
other examples that we have are probably more extreme, like where Jared Goff's never spent a year as a backup. Like it's like
No.
Sam Darnold spent multiple years as a backup, and
Yep.
same with Baker. And so it's interesting where like, yeah, I think that you're right where it does take some time, but it doesn't take time for everyone because you look at
No.
somebody
No.
like a Jaden Daniels who can step in the league automatically and play at a really high level and take his team to the next level. You look at somebody like a Drake May who has stepped into the league and automatically takes his team to a different type of level. And yeah, I just think that like that is where like teams don't have organizations and front offices and coaching staffs don't have time to have that first round pick that they took at the top of the round and be like, yeah, you know what? Like we're gonna sit you for 8 years and set
Yeah.
5-6
No. No.
years
Nobody has. Nobody has that.
get you ready for the NFL. Like, but yeah, I think that there is some truth to that as well, where it's like, okay, like if you are practicing being a professional quarterback for 6 years and you finally start to feel comfortable within that role, then yeah, you're probably going to gain some more confidence over time than you did like when you first stepped in the NFL and you were probably shaking in your boots. That's probably just the distinction though, and why teams move on.
Yeah, I think it's almost like I mean, teams don't have the same time that it feels like they used to. It feels like guys would have a much longer leash back in the day where quarterbacks were able to grow a little bit more. But um, there is obviously both ends of the spectrum where it just clicks right away for some of these guys, and then others it takes a couple years for
Years.
them to
Yeah.
figure it out. And it just so happens that we've seen like 5 of these guys kind of just figure it out. Plus, coaching too, I think, plays obviously a huge role, which we've always said. But I still think that, to be fair, we didn't think that Sam Darnold was going to be good for Seattle this season.
Yeah. No, we did
And
not.
and he's played great, much higher than expectations. So same thing with Daniel Jones. It's like these guys get into a spot where there's some better coaching, plus they've had some experience under their belt, and it's finally started to click for them.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But yeah, I just think that that's the Mac Jones performance on Thursday night just made me
Yeah,
think like there's going to be somebody in the NFL to be like, all right, well, we're going to take a shot at that guy this upcoming season and see if we can make something happen. And the pedigree makes sense. Like he played under Bill Belichick. He went to the playoffs his first year in the NFL, fizzled out, spent times in multiple places in Jacksonville, in
yep.
San Francisco as a perennial backup, and now he finally feels comfortable to be able to go and take that next step. So yeah, I mean, I think there's like you said, there it's both sides, and I think it's just timelines of if you're taking a guy at the top of the draft, you're expecting him to come in right away and be a dude. They don't have time to just sit around and figure it out.
Mac Jones is going to look so good in that neon brown Browns jersey.
He's gonna look good in a Cardinals uniform.
Oh God, you better hope they have a different OC at that point.
Well, they better. Let's just go through the games real quick. Minnesota beat Cleveland 21-17. Indianapolis continues to roll. They beat the Las Vegas Raiders 40-6. I'll comment on the Geno Smith thing real quick. Like he just hasn't been playing good football, but also on the same account of everything, like the same argument that I made for like the New England Patriots, like having like a sort of infrastructure and it working out. I made that same argument for the Las Vegas Raiders, and it's just like not working. So hey, you don't bat 100 every single time, but the thing that stuck out to me most is just like the decreased play in Geno Smith's game, where I don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's because he feels like he has to force every single throw to try to make something happen on this offense, or if he's just lost a step or whatever. It's definitely something I'm going to keep my eye on and watch for the remainder of the year, because if they look this bad for another few weeks, you would have to think that they would just bench Geno Smith and roll with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, it looks like he's just not seeing the field like he used to. And it's weird that something would go away like that quickly. On top of that, like they don't have a great offensive line. They can't really establish any type of run game, and their best player on offense has been banged up. So that certainly doesn't work in his favor either.
Yeah, I don't want to give him that much of an excuse. Like losing Golden hurts, losing Brock hurts, Brock Bowers hurts, and like all that shit hurts, and it sucks.
But you make plays, but he just hasn't been making plays. He's throwing right to guys,
and it just seems like he's trying to just constantly force the ball downfield to try to like make a big play happen, and it's just not there. And I do think that this Raiders team is in desperate need of explosive plays, and maybe that's what's being preached to him, or maybe Geno Smith has just flat lost a step. So I don't know. To keep it pushing, New York at New Orleans. New Orleans wins 26-14. My guy Spencer Rattler gets his first win. Dallas at New York. Dallas 37-22. Weird stat, like Justin Fields is like winless if a team scores 21 points. I know that got thrown around like a good bit. So I just think the Jets they're continue to be a mess. Denver, if you want to chime in at any point too, just interrupt me. Denver at Eagles, we touched on it already, 21-17. Miami at Carolina. Carolina wins 27-14. We talked about it. Miami with the downfall. Houston, Texans.
I want to chime in on that real quick. I don't understand how Mike McDaniel wasn't fired the second this game was over.
Let's look at their schedule.
Like what more of a reason do you need to find to fire your head coach that's already on the hot seat than blowing a lead to the Carolina Panthers?
Probably just waiting for a bye week.
What does it look like? Do you have it pulled up?
Week 12. I just think it's more complicated than just. I just think it's more complicated than just fire coach like midweek.
Yeah, that's fair.
Houston at Baltimore. Historically, Baltimore owns the Houston Texans, but the Houston Texans win 44-10. Finally gets something rolling, but at the same time, it's like the Baltimore Ravens. They're so banged up. Like their top 3 players on defense were all out.
Yeah.
They're the best player in the NFL was out. Lamar
Jackson. Their offensive lineman, I think Stanley was out. Like they probably had like 6 starters that didn't play.
Yeah, so I was expecting them to lose this game. Personally, we touched on Tennessee, Arizona, Tampa Bay at Seattle. Tampa Bay continues to just throw up massive stats. They throw up 38 points, continue to win games, and like despite having injuries on both sides of the football. Baker Mayfield's playing at an MVP level. It's pretty impressive, and
he's sick.
Really not much
he's so sick. He fucking slings it. And this is what they're like 3rd or 4th. This is probably their 4th win where it like came down to the wire, like in overtime or like a last second drive. It's honestly, this game was a banger, and the jerseys were phenomenal. Elite jersey matchup.
Detroit at Cincinnati. We touched on it. Washington at the Los Angeles Chargers. They win 27-10. The Chargers, you're another team
they're
where
falling
apart, lose all their offensive linemen, lose their entire running back room. They lose their best player on defense. It's just one of those teams that they're just starting to free fall as well. The injuries are starting.
They just benched their center, who is a captain as well. So that's not good. That's not good.
Next, we have New England at Buffalo at the 8 o'clock game on Sunday night. New England wins 23-20. I picked New England to win this division at the beginning of the year to go and get this win in Buffalo to start the season. I mean, that's awesome. Great performance by Drake May, even though he didn't even score a touchdown, rushing or passing, but just he felt like he made all the right reads, felt like he limited all those mistakes, and the infrastructure of what the Patriots brought in this season with somebody like a Vrabel, with a play caller like Mike McDaniels. No, Josh McDaniels, excuse me.
Josh
Is clearly all the difference in the world that's being made for this football team. And Stephon Diggs with 146 yards, he looked like he was. I mean, the fact that he had an ACL injury last year, like he looks pretty good.
That's what I was just going to say is like usually after a year, like you get a year and then the second year you're better. He looked like he didn't even have surgery. I mean, this was a Stephon Diggs revenge game, 10 catches for 146, but Drake May made the right play at the right time this entire game. And I will say, I know that Ramondre Stevenson scored twice, but
Insane.
it feels like they run the football so much better when they give it to Travion Henderson. Like it's not even close. Like the one touchdown, Ramondre Stevenson just walked right in. You could have put anybody at running back for that play, and I think they would have scored. But I don't know. It just feels like Travion Henderson just has more like pop to him. I'm not saying to remove Ramondre from the offense because I think he brings value to this offense, but it just seems like there's a little different juice when Travion Henderson has the football running it, at least. But I think the star of this show.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the star of the show was this defense.
Yeah, for sure. They played. They limited James Cook like crazy.
There was butter all over the football too.
That's a Mike Vrabel masterclass on defense to just completely limit what the Buffalo Bills wanted to do. And you're going to see more Travion Henderson this season now that Antonio Gibson tore his ACL. I don't know what it is. I just think they clearly don't like him or trust him or whatever that is. I don't know if that's because he's a rookie or he hasn't shown some signs, but I don't even think that he has shown enough on offense for me to even give him like that pop category. Like he just hasn't done anything this year so far.
I know he hasn't like ripped off any long runs or anything like that. It just feels like whenever I see him get the football, it feels like he has that ability. It's just like carryover from like watching him at Ohio State, and it's just trauma from me. But that could probably be why. But
you know who looks way better?
There was
Quinshon Judkins.
What did I say? I said that when we were talking about the draft. I said that I liked Judkins more, but the haters will not remember that. So I appreciate you saying that.
I was right with you because somebody in my auction draft, they took Travion Henderson early, and I said
many people did.
I was like, why'd you take Travion Henderson when Judkins was on the board? And they were like, Judkins is dust, pretty much. I was like, no, you're tripping. So, yeah, I'm with you. Last game, though, here, and this one we have to take a victory lap on because this was a team that we picked to win the division. This is a team that now sits at 4-1, first in the AFC South. And they go, and after being down, after a 14-point deficit, they go and beat the Kansas City Chiefs 31-28 in very bizarre fashion. They had a pick six. They had some crazy shit happen where literally on the last play, like Trevor Lawrence falls down, the whole defense freezes, and then somehow he gets back up and scores a touchdown. Still, beyond me bizarre. And if you rewatch it, because some clips started to go around today because Chris Jones was vocal in the post-game presser, the clip of Chris Jones on that play where he just stood flat-footed and just stared at what was happening and didn't do anything was absolutely insane. So crazy game, and they won probably in the most Jacksonville Jaguars way ever.
Hey, a win is a win because, I mean, at the end of the day, this was a stereotypical game that the Jacksonville Jaguars would blow and that the Kansas City Chiefs would win. And the fact that they pulled it off in the fashion that they did has to be a great sign for the Jacksonville Jaguars moving forward. That touchdown that Trevor Lawrence had, by far one of the funniest plays I've probably seen in football in a while. It looked like I saw somebody quote the video of him scoring, and it was like this was what a newborn horse would look like if it was trying to score a touchdown. And
I'm watching it right now. It's insane.
But I don't understand did Chris Jones just like, I don't know what he was thinking. Did he just think like, oh, someone else will get him or he's down?
Yeah,
and
probably.
Just stopped.
I mean, his brain just froze, like, and just probably. I mean, that was the most bizarre.
I'll be honest,
thing
it probably
in my life.
It probably would have happened to me too if I'm about to pass rush and I see the quarterback fall over twice and then get back up. I would have probably been just as shook. But I saw. I don't remember the counts, but from what I remember, I think that this was like the most snaps that they let Travis Hunter play in a game this year.
Yeah, I think I saw.
Which maybe that was their game plan all along to like kind of ease him into it. But I know he had that really nice catch on offense. He was kind of quiet elsewhere, but I think that is probably the right method. Maybe just get him involved because like they have good guys. Like I like the offense when he's out there. I like the players that they put out on the offensive side of the football, but who knows if that was just like a circumstantial instance where you're playing the Chiefs, so you're putting them out there more. But I would say it's possibly a step in the right direction, just getting him out there as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, I would completely agree with that, but it feels good to just watch the Chiefs lose and watch a team that I like win. So, I mean, that's really what I mean. It's really that simple.
It was an all-time. It was such an all-time hate watch.
All right, well, let's move into Thursday night football, and then we can call it a night. The Eagles are at the New York Giants. They're 7.5 point favorites on the road. Their money line's at -390, and the over/under is at 40.5. 7.5 feels like a lot of points. I don't really like. I'm obviously going to bet this game, but I'm not going to put like a massive amount of money on it or anything like that. But what do you think about what's going on with this Eagles Giants game, and what do you expect from the Eagles and a bounce back spot when they lost this weekend to the Broncos?
I will say I'm glad that the Eagles play on Thursday rather than Sunday. It kind of forces like a short memory. You don't really have any time to sulk on blowing the game against Denver. You kind of have to get right back into your prep and lock right back into playing the Giants. And I know the Giants aren't very good, but we saw them beat the Chargers not too long ago. So you can't take anybody lightly in the NFL. I think 7.5 is probably too high. I feel like the Eagles just like never cover spreads anymore.
Wow.
So there's that. One thing that does make me nervous is the pass rush. If the Eagles, for some reason, find themselves in a game where they have to throw the football 40 times like they did last week, I will be nervous about that. But what I want to see is them finally get this run game going. The Giants' run defense isn't great, and what better scenario for Saquon Barkley to kind of find his footing, find his rhythm than against a bad rush defense in the New York Giants.
I hope to God. I hope to.
Yeah.
My voice is so fucked up for some reason. Yeah, I hope to God, obviously, but not too excited to watch. Like, I'm not like thank.
It might
God
suck. This
it's a
game
very
might
different
suck.
Game, like,
well, yeah, as an overall football fan, standalone Eagles games get miserable. But as an Eagles fan, I want a short week because of the outcome that we had Sunday.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's pretty much all I have. Great episode. I'll post everything and get it going. Hey, we were efficient tonight. We talked about a lot and got a lot going.
We did. The Yankees are tied 1-1 in the bottom of the third, fighting for our lives. So let's go win the baseball game.
Yeah. Adam Brenneman is on the call for the Liberty game, so I'm about to watch that.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Right
I'll throw that on. I'll throw that on my laptop.
All right, boss. Well, have a good night. See ya.
I'm gonna connect it to the speakers and play it as loud as I can, so everybody in the neighborhood
That's
can
what
hear
I'm
it.
doing. That's what I'm doing.
All right, go Birds.
All right, see you, boss.